Welcome to Bloom Today. We have a real confidence-boosting show for you. We'll be talking about where's the real source of my pain.
Hi, I'm Paula Wallace, president of Bloom in the Dark, and this is
Ginny Paula, the single-handed serenity coach. Welcome to Bloom Today, where we talk about internal and external brokenness and how you can heal,
so that you can use the fertilizer of your past to bloom today. Welcome, everybody. Today we're talking about what's the real source of my pain as opposed to the fake source of my pain.
Absolutely. There's lots of illusionary fake sources to pain if you actually
Or is it fake pain? But, you know, we're talking about the real stuff, aren't we?
No, real pain. There's no shortage of that in this world, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
We get that a lot. But the
Yes.
question is, where is it actually coming from?
Right, and so is it the storm around me, the circumstances around me? Is it me? Mm-hmm. Is it what is the real source of my pain?
Right, and for a long time I thought it was my circumstances that were the source of my pain. So, if I could just get this thing fixed over here, if I could just get the right boyfriend, then everything's going to be okay. If I could just get the right job, then that's going to be fine. It was all about my circumstances, and it wasn't necessarily about me, because I thought I was broken. I thought I was probably more of the problem than anything else, and I could not be fixed. How do you change you? How do you, at the very core, you can't, wherever you go, there you are. So, I'm always going to be the problem. So what's the point of even looking at myself? And I would have told you I had plenty of self-esteem. I never really thought bad about myself. I didn't, I certainly wasn't trying to be conceited and, but I definitely liked myself and who I was for the most part. But when I got into recovery, for alcohol, I recognized, oh my gosh, there's codependency. It's a thing. It's not me personally. I'm not the one who totally needs all these relationships or totally needs the career to work out so I can just feel like I'm enough and it's going to be okay. It was something that I could deal with. And really at the root of it, at the heart of it, was my identity in Christ. I needed to know who I was in Christ, and that no matter what I did, no matter what I chose, no matter what my circumstances were, that I was still loved, I was a child of God, and I was not going to be forsaken or left alone or rejected entirely, because He was always going to be there for me.
Which is really cool. The comedy in my case is I kept getting told it really was me. It wasn't just me thinking it was me. I was getting told it was me.
Sure, from outside.
Outside sources. I went to college in Canada, and I kept having these meetings where it's a Christian church college, and these women who were pastors that were known around the world and whatever would get together and sit me down and tell me how I was the problem, how I was messed up. I was the one who needed to not be me or not be whatever it was.
So were they chastising you? Was this a review?
All of the above. Not a traditional secular college or normal college setting. This is a very small, where they were not just about your performance academically. It was about who you were as a person, who you were as a Christian, how you represented their perception. So completely different way where they had a right to speak into your life outside of just your performance issues academically.
Wow.
And what that did for me is it ended up triggering a whole lot of damage that was tied to childhood abuse from women in authority who were Christians, who had hurt me when I was a toddler. And I didn't understand why. I literally went into a full-scale emotional breakdown where people looked at me, my skin hurt, where I had panic attacks when I would drive onto the college campus, where I had just was so messed up. And then I was getting told that I was the reason, I was the problem. I just needed to somehow or other not be me.
Wow.
And that's crazy when it's not the circumstances that are your problem, it's you. And then you're like, and I don't even know how to change the circumstances.
Right.
So then you want to give up completely. And I did at that point. That was one of the times when I talked in a previous show about going out and wanting a bear to eat me because we were out in the middle of nowhere. It sounds crazy, but literally have a bear come in and eat me because
like a realistic
a twisted version
opportunity,
of suicide to be eaten by a bear, right?
Yeah.
But going back to the fact that I never understood there was a real source to my pain, and it wasn't my identity that was causing the pain. It was a whole lot of damage. And that the circumstances could come and go. They could have had all of these negative attitudes and whatever. It wouldn't have had to destroy me and send me into a full-scale emotional breakdown if it weren't for the fact that I already had all this damage coming up to it. So, but we want to talk about the fact that when we do understand the real source of the pain, then we can start being proactive about doing something about it, getting help, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Satan would love nothing more than to keep us putting out this little fire here and that little fire here. And if it's just this, or it's just my circumstances, it's just this one situation.
Just leave Canada,
Sure, why not? Just run away completely, and it'll be completely fine.
Except it wasn't.
Right, and for me, a lot of it was, well, let me just run to alcohol instead so I don't have to think about my circumstances. And let me, or I would obsess over things a lot of times, obsess over, what did I say to my boss? What did I say to my coworker? Are they still going? What are they going to think about me after this? And it was the same with alcohol. I would start to obsess over that as well. And these are all distractions that Satan wants to use to stop me from looking at what my real issue was. And for me, it was my core identity in Christ. And I was a believer at this point, and I was going to church, and I was surrendering as much as I could. I was still more of a baby returning Christian at that point, but trying to figure out how do I do this? How do I make this work? And Satan just kept throwing those fires in the garden. I like to think of it as, here I am in the garden trying to take care of appearances, everything on the outskirts, while the house is burning down behind me.
Right.
But I can't pay attention to that if I've got to put out this fire here and this fire here and this fire here. He can do all kinds of damage that I'm not looking at.
Right, and that's where starting to understand that there's questions we can start asking ourselves that have to do with what is the core problem? Where is the pain really coming from? Because leaving Canada, leaving school, leaving all that stuff didn't suddenly make my life better because I took me with me.
Yep.
Yeah, I took me with me. And so understanding that when there's recurring things or obsessive thoughts and realities or dysfunctional patterns, whether it's at school or with authority figures or in your health or jobs or family issues or whatever, what are the kinds of things we can start asking that fit into these cycles or patterns of damage?
Well, we've both of us said now the obsessive thinking, the dysfunction, but there's three main areas I think that really come into play. And the first one is in our health.
I was sick a lot.
I was sick a lot too. I had high blood pressure at 22. Who gets high blood pressure at
22? That was a little bit young.
I was on it for 8 years. It was a problem. It was not,
medication.
Not a little thing.
Yeah.
No, they said, we're scared you're going to have a stroke, so take this before you leave. There's something that's recurring here. It's coming out in our bodies. Our bodies are trying to give us warning signs that there's something that we're not looking at. There's something that we're not dealing with. So if you are obsessing on something of your health, or if there is something that's recurring in your health issues, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the same health issue.
It can just be that you have health issues popping up all over the place.
Consistently. Right.
Because psychosomatic diseases means, and that's 75% of all disease, has to do with stress levels, with your mindset, with fear, with all these damaging things that then show up in disease, brokenness, illness, compromised immune systems.
Yes.
All of this damage.
It's all connected.
Right. So recognizing, okay, there might be something deeper. Than the circumstances. And then there's things like relational dysfunction. When you have messed up dating experience or boyfriend or relational issues repeatedly, or constant issues with a coworker.
Right.
Different coworkers, different jobs, but still having...
Right, and exactly. But in the relational dysfunction, am I the common denominator in all of this? I dated guys that were very different from each other. They had different personalities, but it seemed that there was always the same kind of dysfunction. Not the same kind, but there was some kind of dysfunction where we just could not connect, couldn't get it right. And I was the common denominator, unfortunately, in those areas. And yes, they had their own issues, but I was the one who was choosing issues after issues after issues and not being able to work through it correctly.
Yeah, and then starting to understand, it says in Romans 8:5, for those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit. When we're obsessing about, whether it's relationships or health issues or whatever, our focus is, again, on the damage, on the flesh, on the brokenness, and it's not on Christ as a source for help or processing whatever that damage is that's triggering these pieces.
Not bringing God and our relationship with Him into it necessarily, or asking what the bigger picture is, but focusing again on those circumstances and, God, can you just fix this circumstance right here? And so many times He doesn't answer us because He wants us to focus on the larger picture.
He wants us to grow and change and heal.
Absolutely.
Which is an entirely different thing, because then we're talking about another question. Have you experienced roadblocks in your career? You know,
if you're obsessing over those roadblocks in your career, oh my gosh. Obsession. I got to get there. And again, there's a lot of I's.
Oh yeah.
Right there in those statements. In John 15:5, it says, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit, for apart from me, you can do nothing. And there it is.
The source.
Apart from me, apart from God, it's just us spinning our wheels, turning and turning, trying to make something of our own making.
Right, and Jesus fell asleep in the bottom of the boat in the middle of the storm. The storm wasn't what defined whether or not he was at peace.
Right.
He was at peace. God had the storm. God could give him the power to change it. But at the end of the day, it wasn't about the storm. It was about him being at peace. And I know that I've had all my circumstances actually be amazing, and I have been a complete fall apart mess, broken, dysfunctional. And then I have actually found hope and healing and had all my circumstances completely fall apart, be destroyed, loss of everything. And I've been at peace and in Christ because of where my focus was. And it wasn't him fixing the circumstances. It was me keeping my eyes on him.
Right.
And
peace in the midst of the storm.
Right. And healing in the middle of that, and his hope and life in the middle of it. So we talk about that more?
Absolutely. If you want to delve into this subject a little bit more and find out how it's affecting you in your life and how you can make some changes to look at what's actually going on rather than just fruitlessly trying to fix your circumstances, we've got a coaching tool for you at bloomtodaytv.com. And that's just a couple pages where we outline the lesson we've gone over and also asking you some questions to help you apply it to your life to get some hope and healing.
Thank you for that. And we have a really, really fun guest today.
We do have a really fun guest today. I'm excited to bring her on because when we said this is going to be a confidence-boosting show, I know she's going to bring it. Award-winning entrepreneur, speaker, author of 2 books, Kimberly Brownie Vaughn. Would you please come join us in the kitchen, Brownie?
And can you give her a hand?
I might be able to help you with that. Oh, Brownie!
Yes! Yes! I'm going to, boom, knock negativity out of the park.
Out of the park.
Yes, thank you for your hand.
You are very welcome.
It's good to see you, ladies.
Good to see you, too. Thanks for coming in.
Yes, thank you for having me.
You are such a ray of sunlight everywhere you go. You just exude confidence and energy and joy, and I love that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, it hasn't always been this way. A lot of people look at me now, and it's like, wow, you seem to be so confident. You seem to be energetic. But I've gone through some storms. I've gone through some dark, deep, lonely, private times that has helped the sun shine a little bit brighter.
But you're going to share some of that to give hope to some people that might be thinking that there isn't much hope, right?
Indeed. You know, there was a point in my life where I really went through a whole lot of heartache. I had a lot of my dreams set on having a live band. I was in one. Music was my middle name coming up as a child.
Coming to Music City is the
Music
place.
City, I
Here we
know.
go.
Here in Nashville,
Exactly.
yeah.
And so I graduated